Welcome back to MurrayMax. We have another clip from the Whatever podcast. This one does not have Andrew Wilson in it or anybody else. It looks like it's just Brian and the old school version of the panel. And so this is kind of how the whole show started when it was at its initial rise. I know Brian did stuff before that. But anyways, I haven't watched this video yet, but the context of it is that apparently a radical feminist on the panel thinks that childbirth is worse than war. And I obviously disagree with that. I would rather my significant other go through a pregnancy than get sent off to, the Middle East or Ukraine or something like that. Yeah. Let's watch this. Let me know in the comments what you think. And I can already tell I'm going to disagree. This should be a fun one.
Women are oppressed in the USA. Shannon, you agree. Moon, you agree. Let's see, anyone else? Gabby, you agree. Just really quick, how are women oppressed in the USA? I know we talked about privilege, but how are they oppressed?
I would just say it's baked into our society. Like, women still don't seem to have the same level of seriousness when it comes to the workplace. Like, women aren't taken as seriously, and just in general, socially, like, women aren't taken as seriously as men.
Okay. All right. What about you, Moon?
Just real quick, if you worked in an office that had a bunch of guys in it, and one day one of the guys, complete 100% male, masculine guy, lumberjack looking fella, tough guy. If one day he wanted to file a complaint and he tried to claim that there was oppression because the air conditioner was too low and he was cold, would you take him seriously too? Just asking for a friend, because that happens on the opposite end of it.
How are women oppressed?
No offense, but I would even say, just the fact, this podcast in general, we are having to defend basically who we are, what we believe in, and some of the stuff that we didn't even have any control over, such as the draft and stuff. I get war. I think it's horrible. I think all of that's just disgraceful. But to me, nothing compares to childbirth. And the day that a man can pull another human out of his body, then we'll talk. War is war, but none of that has any balance towards child.
Let's have a moment of silence for all of the women out there who have lost their legs in childbirth and lost their eyesight and their hearing and still have shrapnel riddled through their back and burns all over their body and have held their dying friends that were bleeding out in a foreign country, and all due to childbirth. Let's just have a moment of silence for them. There.
Hold on.
You ask me.
Voluntary childbirth.
Not all childbirth is voluntary.
What percentage of childbirth is
I have no
voluntary?
idea, but not all childbirth is voluntary, and childbirth lasts 9 months. Some women die. It's a horrible thing, and no man can do it. And then when y'all sit here and you say, but aren't we stronger than you? Then go to war. Why are you crying about it like that? Why is it this big thing? You just said y'all are stronger. You want women with low body counts. You want us to be at home. You want us to be that model woman that's beautiful and soft and submissive, but you don't want to go, you can't have it both ways. You can't have us and then, no. If this just...
I believe we should not
silly.
send men to war at all, and we should just send the women.
I think we all...
That'd be sick.
I want to send Gabby to war.
She'd do it. She'd
What?
be lethal.
Wait, what'd you say?
I want to send you to war.
I actually was thinking about enlisting
with the proper
training because
Right?
college sucked.
I think women will make
if I don't
great
go back-
soldiers.
Hold on. I got to address that first point you made, though. Childbirth is worse than, the brutality of war?
I would say because the amount that most women are going to have to go through childbirth. Sure, some volunteer to give birth. Most women want children, men want children, but we are the only sex that has to go through 9 months of usually uncomfortable living and then painful birth or surgery.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I'm not going to dispute that pregnancy and childbirth is painful or discomforting, or
Like war is painful
or
and
suffering or whatever.
yeah.
But I don't think you're going to make a compelling argument that childbirth can be nearly as bad as war.
No, I'm saying for me personally, it's like she said too, I think there are things and suffering on both sides. And most women today, I think especially the ones sitting here, we don't want any of us to suffer. We don't want y'all to go to war. We don't, like, I get your argument, but I think my question behind the whole men going to war thing was like, what's your point? Like
Yeah, I get Brian's argument too. I just don't get your argument either. This is the same person that on a different video I did, she said that she has a dick. And when Brian asked her, she said, well, I don't. But technically, even a cucumber is the same thing as a dick because it's a similar shape. Like, her arguments have made no sense the entire time. She's just lost.
We see it. We don't like it. What is your point behind it? Like, oh, we also deserve a blankie because we suffer too. We knew that.
Like,
we
what
knew
do
that
you
before
want
you
women
said
to do
that.
about
I'll
it?
explain. No. Yeah, I'll
Because
explain.
we want to do something about it.
No, I'll explain. So feminism has always been about a comparison. Women have it worse to men. But I just reject this categorically, both modern day and historically. So this idea that, like, the point I'm trying to make by bringing up warfare is that it's clearly ignored as a gender-based grievance, but it clearly is a gender-based grievance if you look at the distribution of men who are soldiers, and not just that, but even if you do a comparison between male soldiers and female soldiers, men are almost exclusively the frontline soldiers, exclusively the ones that are injured, exclusively the ones that are frontline combat that are getting killed.
Yep.
Or PTSD, or all of these things. Women often, even when they are in the military, they're not on the front lines. They're not going to raid Osama bin Laden's thing. They're not SEAL Team 6 or whatever, all that stuff. Women are typically in administration roles. They're in support roles. Men are overwhelming, like even in that scenario where women are in the military. So this comparison, feminism's always been about a comparison. And I'm saying, actually, now that you're playing the comparison game between men and women, I'm going to play it too. And I'm going to say that if we're looking at the totality of circumstances, and there's a bunch of, by the way, besides war, men are more likely to be homeless. Men are less likely to go to college. Men are more likely to unalive themselves. Men are more likely to be incarcerated. Men are more likely to be
not ask for help.
victim of violent crime. There's plenty of things that I can tell you besides just the war argument where men are disproportionately impacted with negative life outcomes. It's interesting to me. I think part of feminism is the apex fallacy. You look at the top 1% or 10% of men, and you attribute that lived experience, oh, that's how all men must experience life. But the reality is, here's my argument, is that while it might be the case that there's more male CEOs, and there's more men who are rich, and there's more men who occupy boardrooms, and there's more men who occupy positions of power, I'm not going to argue any of that. I'm not going to dispute any of that. I'm going to go ahead and agree and grant it. However, I think a greater proportion of women enjoy what I would call the middle, the comfortable middle.
I would also, not to interrupt Brian here, but I would also argue that Western women are probably the most privileged group of people on planet Earth. Honestly, they have such lives where they can complain that people open doors for them, and you think I can't open my own door? That's what your complaint is? Western women, I know Myron says it, privilege is invisible to those who have it. There's no privilege to going to war. And they talk about a pregnancy can last 9 months. You're like, I know you can get morning sickness. I know it's uncomfortable. I know that childbirth is a painful thing. But to pretend that the kind of PTSD and trauma experienced by, a Marine that's kicking down doors in Afghanistan or Iraq is the same as somebody who went to the local hospital and held her husband's hand while she gave birth, et cetera, is even comparable, And then the end result of the Marine on tour is friends who are no longer here, friends who are maimed, maybe physical, mental, emotional trauma that they carry with them for the rest of their lives, maybe losing a limb. But then the mother, most of the time, overwhelming majority, I think that the death rate of pregnant mothers giving birth in the United States is something like 20-something per 100,000. And believe me, if the soldiers we sent over to Iraq and Afghanistan, if only 23 or 24 per 100,000 soldiers passed away, then we would have a lot more people in this country right now. That's for sure. The comparison is just absurd. Let me know in the comments what you think.
And then, though, if we're looking at this like a pyramid, sure, let's just go ahead and put men on top. And then in the middle, where it's like you're living like your life's good, your life's okay. You're not a superstar CEO, or you're not, you don't have power, whatever. Although we can have conversations of the soft power that women do have. But at the very bottom of this pyramid, you see almost exclusively men. The most dangerous jobs, the dirtiest jobs, the most negative life outcomes are disproportionately men. So yeah, maybe it's true that you don't get the C, or what's it called, the corner window office at your company. It's not even clear to me if like being a wage slave for some company is like this big win. But the worst negative life outcomes, it's almost always men.
So it's like you were saying that feminism is like women's advocacy. So we're all
men.
And also like trying to help men as well, just trying to make things better.
When was feminism about helping men? What are you talking about? Are we going to pretend like now, like modern feminism isn't even completely openly and proudly anti-men?
For majority of people. And so women are coming together and we're having conversations and we're explaining these grievances and we're usually voting things in to make this change. Whereas it sounds like men just want to maybe just complain about the tasks they have to do in society. And I get your grievances, but like, what do you want us to do now that we're listening to them?
I don't want women to demonize men. I don't want women to view all men as predators. I want men. Yeah. I want.
I feel
women.
like that's a conversation you should have with your fellow man as well.
No. Okay, I'm also kind of like pissed off on watching this video because of the absurd comparison of childbirth to going to war. But men aren't the ones saying, we don't need women. Women are trash. All women are trash. That's coming from the female side of it. And the female side is also, I would choose the bear over a man. And like all these absurd things they say all the time. They have no sympathy or empathy for men. They're openly anti and disparaging of men. And then apparently now that's also on men to fix that. What would she be saying if the second she mentioned some kind of statistic about how women have it bad, if Brian said, well, you need to talk to women about that. It's not our problem. You fix it. Like, it's just crazy.
But hold on, feminism's always like, we want men to acknowledge our grievances.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you want equality on that. You want to also be acknowledged in your grievances, which is great. Yeah. This is good.
But I don't like, once you open up this game of grievance, then we have to, I think it's completely fair for men to be like, wait, hold on. You're saying that just by virtue of me being a man, I'm so privileged and my life must be so easy because I'm a man. But the reality is that's it's just not true whatsoever. Yeah. And this idea, it's kind of this, it is sexist to just say, well, men are privileged. Men just have privilege. In comparison to what? Well, in totality of what? Like
I think it's a privilege to not have a period every month.
I think it's a privilege that the majority of women in this country don't have their genitals mutilated upon birth.
And I think we can both have our grievances, but at the end of the day, are you voting to make that change happen? Because
okay, next time it's on the ballot, I'll vote to vote away women's periods. What are you talking about?
vote to change having periods, but you could potentially talk to your fellow brethren about the situation, but instead you're like complaining to us, and it's like, what do you want us to, we hear you and we have empathy for you, just like we want you to have empathy for us, but at the end of the day, like, you have to talk to your fellow man about that situation.
Or us too, because we can vote. This conversation is actually what helps us a lot, because when we hear that you guys, we're like, wait a minute, like, it blew my mind when I'm realizing that I had been programmed to believe that men didn't have feelings and emotions. I had to do a lot of work to realize that it was like, oh, I need to be more mindful of what I'm telling someone, especially with a partner and in a relationship. Like, you do have thoughts and emotions and feelings and grievances and pain and trauma, and and I watch that. I've seen women destroy men and emasculate and all that. So it's like, wait a minute, women do have some work to do. Now that we're at the table, there should be some solution. We can keep going with the he said, she said, you do this, I did that, but it is more like, hey, there are grievances. What's the solution?
And how dehumanizing and how detached and unaware of some kind of privilege versus whatever you want to call it, to even have to be in your adult life to have some crazy realization that, oh my goodness, men are human too, and they actually have feelings. I remember the day when that occurred to me that women can actually feel things. I used to just think that they were like these emotionless, no feeling, just kind of like robots that went through life. And then one day I had this epiphany, and I thought, wait a minute, when they cry, it comes from some place of feelings. Like, this is just more proof of how detached women are allowed to be.
And men asking for help more too.
I don't identify as misandrist. I have empathy and care for men in my life. I have a relationship with my boyfriend, and it's very close, and I understand his own grievances when it comes to being a man in our society. I do, however, have friends who are feminists who are misandrists, so I understand what you're saying, where
Why would you be friends with a misandrist?
Well, she has certain opinions, but her overall, she's a kind human being.
Oh, she
just has differences of opinion.
My friend's racist, but and like hates this group.
Well, like, you probably have friends who are like extreme conservatives. You don't have the same exact viewpoints as them all the time.
Oh yeah, now we're going to compare someone who's conservative to someone who just flat out hates the opposite gender. This is just like that chick has me pissed off. That's just, I mean, between her and the chick with the dick and the purple hair, like, it's just, this is absurd. Childbirth is the same as going to war. And I think that one of the reasons I'm so kind of pissed off about this is because I grew up in a generation where I went to school and grew up with a lot of guys who ended up going overseas and doing multiple tours. And, we woke up for school one day, we watched 9/11 happen on TV, and we were super gung-ho about it. Being from where I was from, we hear about stories about guys like Pat Tillman. And it was like, actual sacrificing heroes for a cause that you believe was bigger. And then there's the bitterness about when you find out, the truth behind a lot of things you were lied to, and how you have people who are now just grave sites because they thought something was true and it wasn't. And then there's lots of people who, carry trauma and injuries and physical disabilities with them because of the whole situation. And to compare that to childbirth, I know that my mom doesn't wake up in the middle of the night screaming with PTSD because she gave birth to me when I was born. I know that my children's mother isn't in a wheelchair today because my children were born. I know that women in general don't have a bunch of, they don't look through their yearbook and go, look at all the people we lost because they had children. It's just, the comparison is insane. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyways, boom, put a happy face back on. There we go. Done with that. She's not going to piss me off for another second further. She is, I'm not going to say the R word, but she is. Anyways, leave a comment, like, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in to MurrayMax.